Media.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Cruz. After almost 2 decades as a career network marketer, I realized that despite continual work on my personal and professional development, that I had hit a massive brick wall. So I took a deep and honest look at myself, top to bottom, hoping to find answers, and my search led me to one conclusion. The definitions I held of my business, of my world, of my life were the very things holding me back. If I wanted to change, if I wanted to grow beyond my current circumstances, I had to wipe the slate clean and redefine. This show is dedicated to helping you identify the belief systems, the mindsets, the very definitions that have held you back, and then help you break through those limitations to finally create the life you've been working so hard to achieve. Welcome to the ReDefine Podcast. All right, welcome back to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Today is the health episode, how I got my health back on track, because it was way off track. And it's also a conversation about default, right? Default, I think, is the bigger picture. It's the bigger overall theme that I want to get to in the context of health, right? Default can apply to pretty much everything in our lives because default is what we rely on, right? It's how we operate, the habits that dictate the actions, and therefore that dictate the results that we have in our lives. This particular conversation will illustrate that in the health conversation. So going back to the events of May, I really let my health slip. There's nothing more. I can't put any finer point on it. Leading up to my dad's death, it was a lot of lack of sleep, not eating regularly. We were waiting in vigil pretty much around the clock, especially the week before, the week leading up to it. And doing those shifts, it's not a regular schedule. If any of you have had to do that, you'll understand. On top of that, it was a revolving door of visitors, family coming to support us. Well-wishers and people, coming to say goodbye, things like that. So it just wasn't a regular schedule. The routine that I'm used to having, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, eating, in my allotted time of eating. And so I was very, very unhealthy going into the funeral, and then the arrangements leading up to the funeral, and then everything after that with guests, and it was just so much to juggle. So I actually lost a lot of weight in those weeks. And okay, so but when I say a lot of weight, it's not a lot of weight. All right, like relatively, it's not a lot of weight. It was about 5 pounds. But for me, I'm not. For those of you who know me personally, I'm not a big guy. So 5 pound swing is significant. It's significant. It's very, very noticeable too. Like I remember some of my good friends that came into town noticed that, hey, Ronnie, you are. You're looking pretty thin. And so I knew it was because of everything that was going on, and that I hadn't paid as much attention to my health regimen as I usually do. After the funeral, after the dust has settled from all of that activity, I started to gain weight. Right, I stayed in Durham, which is where my mom lives. I stayed there for a time, for quite a long time actually. So I spent a lot of time there, and it's one of those things where I was aware that I wasn't being my normal healthy self. And I allowed that, right? I allowed myself to do that because it was what I needed at the time. Excuse me. It was all I could handle from an emotional and a mental bandwidth, even an energetic bandwidth, to just be and allow whatever feelings I'm experiencing, allow myself to go through that without having to kind of shoulder the burden of everything else that I usually shoulder as an entrepreneur, right? For those of you who are entrepreneurs, you'll understand that with health, a lot of times, because of our frenetic schedules, because of our crazy workloads, because of all the responsibilities that we have to take on, health is very often the first thing that we sacrifice, right? That we sacrifice for achievement of the goals and the outcomes that we set out for ourselves. And this was the case for me, even though I had put business and I had put marketing and I'd put all the social media and content stuff aside. It was all I could do to just be and allow myself to experience what I was experiencing, without expending extra bandwidth to make sure I stay on top of things, with from a health standpoint. Also, to understand that when you're not in your normal environment, especially for me, where the majority of the people that I was with don't eat and have the same regimen as I do, it's easier to just to go along with the flow, right? To eat how everybody eats and to do what everybody does. Also, too, with just the other patterns of behaviors, it was something that I needed to do for me from a comfort level, right? I just needed to go through that. It was helping kind of soothe and ease my emotional state. I was drinking a lot too, and this is not going to be a conversation of you need to stop drinking. I still like to drink, but I was really really drinking a lot. I was trying to numb the emotions. I was eating for comfort, and so that resulted in me swinging back another 5 pounds or so. And it was not a healthy 5 pounds. Again, it doesn't sound like a huge difference, but yeah, for me, it's a lot. It's a lot. Very, very noticeable. I took some photos of myself in the mirror. I think it was late June or July. But I noticed, I saw myself and I was like, whoa, I've let myself slip a little too far, a little too far. But again, I was conscious of this. I was aware that I was doing this and I was allowing it to happen, because there was just, I knew that it would have taken too much energy, and bandwidth to keep myself on track. And therefore that kind of, for lack of a better word, healing process would have taken longer. Right. And instead of drawing it out and just fighting it, I let it be. And then once I was okay and in a space where I could, take a little bit of the helm back, then I did that. And that's what I did, right? Like I let myself slip. I allowed that. And I think it was around, mid to late August, I really started to take better care of myself. And it's really that simple. And it wasn't that difficult, right? And here's where default comes into the situation. Because I had been building a lifestyle and habits around health and nutrition, and really, I created that lifestyle. It was easy, relatively simple and easy. I didn't have to fight, urges, or it wasn't a struggle to get back into physical activity. It wasn't struggle to start eating right again, because that was my default, right? It's a default, like, as I said earlier, it's a default that I had been building and working on and continue to build for decades now, for my entire adult life. So reverting back to that default, which for me is a healthier lifestyle, was relatively easy. And actually being unhealthy was what was difficult, right? And that's why again I allowed myself to tip on that side of the scale, because I knew the further I tip on that side, the quicker I can bounce back, because I know that it's being in an unhealthy state would be contrarian to my default of healthy living. And from a health standpoint, this is really important, right? Like as I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurs sometimes, oftentimes, the first thing we neglect is our health. And if we are unhealthy, we're automatically not going to feel good. And if we don't feel good, we're going to be less capable of handling the challenges and adversities that we all inevitably face as entrepreneurs. And those life events that are challenging, that we all inevitably face, unavoidable. Those life events, like the loss of loved ones, that and grief, that we all will ultimately face on our life journeys. So it's important as much as possible to maintain a strong foundation when it comes to health. because that will actually equip you in better handling everything else that's going to be coming your way, good or bad, right? Good or bad. So health is foundational. Again, as I kind of navigate these different seasons in my life, and I've navigated them quite often, the first thing I always get back to is making sure that I pay attention to my health, and from there I can build from that. I can build on top of good health, as opposed to, because it's foundational, as opposed to building trying to build something on poor health or dis-ease. Well, that's a shaky foundation, right? That's a shaky foundation. So, you're gonna wanna equip yourself as much as possible to be able to deal with the adversities that you will ultimately face, in and outside of entrepreneurism. So health is foundational. Health is foundational, and the more you do this, the more you pay attention to this, and the more you make it a lifestyle, the easier it will be. You won't have to employ and exert as much willpower and discipline, because it's your default. It'll become your default, and that's the thing about default, right? Sometimes we think, well, it's just who I am. It's just what I default to. I rely on food for comfort. Well, okay, if that's the story you keep telling yourself, then that's how it's always going to be. But understand that it doesn't have to be that way. It might be the default now, but you can change that default. You just have to have that desire to do it and the discipline to see it through. Yes, the first 3 months will be difficult. The next 6 months after that will still be a challenge, but it gets easier as you go, and it has to be an ongoing thing, because health is not a destination. I think that's another thing that is really kind of what makes it difficult for people to live healthy lifestyles, is they employ healthy eating and healthy living to create a very specific outcome, right? Like, it's bikini season coming up. Let me start eating better so I can lose weight and look good for bikini season. But health is so much more than a summer outcome that you're trying to create with, or a summer aesthetic that you're trying to create for yourself. Health is something. Health and well-being is really how you want to feel and how you want to live for the rest of your life, until your very last day. And if you want to have vitality, if you want to have energy, if you want to feel good, then it's not eat a certain way for 3 months and fit and look good in your bikini in the summertime, and then eat the rest of the year, right. All right, it's not that. It's ongoing. Again, till our very last day. Till I know I will till my very last day. Pay attention to, how I'm eating and healthy living, so that I can continue to be vital and energetic and feel good, right? And have that high level of well-being that I want to experience in this life, right? So yeah, that's it's fundamental. It's fundamental, y'all. If you really shift your perspective and your conceptualization of nutrition and of healthy living, from something that you do in this X period of time so that you can create the result. If you shift it away from that to health and wellness being something that you do and how you live, then it gets easier. It gets easier to kind of manage the discipline in the short term, for that long term outcome, right? And develop that long term default, right? Rewriting your default. Again, you don't have to be married or stuck with your current default. You can change it. And it's just a matter of making these mental shifts around the thing that you're trying to change, so that you can endure the initial difficult period when you're trying to alter the trajectory of your inertia. That's completely right. The trajectory of your inertia. There you go, tongue twister. The trajectory of your inertia, right? Right. An object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. So it's that initial trying to change the direction of the inertia that you have to exert force in. But once it starts moving in that direction, then it becomes easier, right? And you really start to settle into a better, healthier default. That's if you want to create new outcomes in your life. And this goes for anything that you're trying to achieve. Obviously, fitness is part of that. If you want to get into a fitness regimen, if you want to be more physically active, one of the things that leads to ill health and just this degeneration of well-being as we age is a sedentary lifestyle, right? So if you're sedentary, it's going to be initially difficult to get that ball rolling in the other direction of being physically active. But as long as you exert that force, exert that discipline, and willpower for a long enough period of time, then it becomes default. The momentum and the inertia will start to carry itself in the healthy direction. It applies to business, right? Business, especially network marketing and entrepreneurism. It's not something that is taught, or it's not something that's normal. It's not something that I mean, unless you came from an entrepreneurial family, entrepreneurial family and business owning family, then it's generally something that nobody has done in your family, and you're the first one, right? You're pioneering. And so the inertia of building a business and like being an entrepreneur, it's going to take a lot of effort and energy to create momentum and inertia in that direction, because we're used to just clocking in, looking for work, earning a wage. Right? Like that's the mindset that we're programmed with from really very, very early on, at least my generation, right? The current generation is a little different, which is awesome. But for my generation, yeah, we're not taught entrepreneurism. We're taught to work for a wage. And so it takes a lot of momentum to shift that inertia and to change that direction. But you can do it, but you have to exert the discipline and the willpower for a long enough period of time to get the inertia moving in the other direction. It's really, really simple. And then therefore, your default will revert back to, will be reset to something that can and will create the outcomes that you want to create in life. With this podcast, and with my marketing and the social content, the social media content and the content creation, it's actually been relatively simple, because it's default. Like, I haven't had to kind of fight with myself to do this, even though this format is a little new. I haven't had to fight myself to get to start posting and to start recording these things, these podcast episodes and these videos, other than like reworking my schedule a little bit. The action of actually recording and posting this stuff has been relatively simple, because it's already default, right? It's already default. So default, right? It's really, really important. And health is fundamental. It's foundational to everything that we do as entrepreneurs, as human beings living on this planet, and in the future maybe not on this planet, right? It's fundamental. It's foundational, and so we have to take care of ourselves. So some of the things that I do, and this part of the conversation will just be very kind of not very specific necessarily, but it's what I do personally, and I'll share it with you. Just take what you want from it, and maybe incorporate and adapt some of the things that I do to stay healthy and to stay vital, and to stay energetic, right? Number one, physical activity. Even through all of that stuff that was going on, I still ran. I was still a runner. I just wasn't posting about it, right? I'm a runner. Like, that's something I'll never be able to shake, because it's default. It's really ingrained as part of my identity. So my body just does it. It's in my body memory, right? So like that level of physical activity remains. I've added weight training. Because weight training, partly, functional, right? Like, as I age, I want to make sure that I can still climb up a set of stairs, and that my back is strong, and that I can climb up a hill. I live on a mountain, so I need to be able to still walk down to the mailbox a quarter mile down my driveway, uphill both ways, right? So functional things, for weight training, but also too, again, in taking those photos of myself in the mirror, I realized, man, okay, so yeah, I let myself slide so much. that I decided, on top of the mileage and the running that I always do anyways, I'm going to incorporate weight training just to create a new aesthetic for myself, right? Beyond the functional strength, I want to sculpt a new physique, and I know, that's just aesthetics and that's just vanity. But at 47, part of it is I want to see what I can still achieve on a physical level, and throwing in this new type of goal that I've never really had before, it adds a level of kind of newness and funness and freshness to my physical activity, right? It just gives it something new and fun to go after. I'm excited to be on that track and to see what kind of changes, physique changes that I can make for myself. And again, there's that functional side of building strength, making sure my back is strong, et cetera, et cetera. But also, yeah, just from a vanity standpoint, right? Just from a vanity standpoint. And then as far as nutrition, it was simple to snap back into my normal nutrition regimen. It's a high protein diet. And I carb cycle, right? So I carb cycle through the 7 day process, right? So let's just say the 7 day process starts on Monday. I carb cycle. Monday, Tuesday is protein day. Wednesday is a meal day where I'll incorporate carbs and not really heavy carbs. I don't eat any grain products. The only grain really that I consume is rice, and really that's I don't even eat that on a regular basis. So healthy carbs, no grain products. On Wednesday, I allow that in my diet. Thursday is another protein day. Friday, carb day or meal day is what I call it. Saturday, protein day. Sunday, meal day. Right. So that's kind of the eating regimen. My eating regimen for the week, and then within that I intermittent fast. Right. I intermittent fast. I have about a 6 hour window. 6 hour, about a 6 hour window where I consume solid food. Beyond that, I don't really go hungry, and I have enough. I make sure I have enough in that time, and I don't eat huge meals either. I'm constantly kind of snacking and pecking beyond my sit down meals. I have enough to fuel what I need, right? To fuel what I need, and this allows my body to stay really lean, very very efficient. I do supplement, of course, because you should supplement anyways, because the nutritional value of our food has drastically declined over the last handful of decades. So supplement anyway, and because I have a high protein diet, I don't eat as much vegetables as I can, and living remotely, right? Like, it's hard to keep vegetables anyways. I'll buy some vegetables and they go bad in like 2 days, right? So it doesn't necessarily keep up here. And to go back and forth to keep fresh vegetables in the house, it's undoable. So I drink a greens product, a Yoli Lean Greens Plus, which is an amazing product. It's a full serving of veggies, and so and healthy mushrooms. I don't know all the science of it, but it's supposed to be really good for you. And again, I can feel the difference. Now with this high protein diet, I also have to supplement because it's a very acidic diet, and I don't want to have too much inflammation. The diet and the exercise does create acidity in the body, so I make sure I buffer that. So I have a body pH equalizer, enhancer that regulates the pH in my system, and that keeps me super super healthy, right? And you might be thinking, well, Ronnie, you're just eating, this sounds just like a fad diet or whatever. And okay, so here's my statement about that. It's not. This is something that I've incorporated over time, and different things that I've learned and incorporated for myself. So have that mindset as you are building and creating the health results that you want for your life. However, these things that you hear, as you see different new trends in health and nutrition, just do your own research, right? Do your own freaking research. Just because what I'm saying might sound like a fad, doesn't mean that I didn't do research on it. There's a lot of research, and it's backed by my own personal results and results that other people have gotten. So don't just dismiss something outright because it's popular. Do your own due diligence, man. Do your own due diligence. I think it's weird how the population has become very cynical and pessimistic while also being an expert on everything. Like we don't believe anything, but we believe everything, which makes no sense. It's a very selective belief. Or selective belief. We're picky and choosy with what we decide is true or valid or relevant, when really just look at the facts, right? Just look at the facts. The stuff that I've talked about with the health and nutrition, my own personal health and nutrition is backed by a lot of science. And in fact, there's a book that I want to recommend that you read or listen to, or both, multiple times. And I picked up this book around the time that I started getting my health back on track, and it really validated a lot of the practices that I've had, in my life over the years. It's called Outlived, and for the life of me, I didn't write down the author. I apologize, but it's called Outlived. I'll leave a link in the show notes of this episode. It's a great book. It's a great book, and there's a lot of science behind, the stuff that he talks about in the book as far as maintaining your health, and a lot of it is what I talked about, in today's episode. So, health, foundational. If you are in a space where you're finding yourself at your wit's end, health has to be the foundation that you see to first, so that you can continue to build on top of a solid foundation. And it's not one of those things that you just do for a season or for a period of time. It's something that has to be ongoing if you want a high level of well-being till your very last day. Don't employ a health change only for a season to create a specific outcome. The specific outcome that you want to create is longevity, right? It's ongoing. It's not just for a resolution in January, or it's not just for the summer swimsuit season next year, right? Create it for a way that you want to live for the rest of your life, right? And how you want to feel for the rest of your life. So that's it. That's the episode for today. Next episode, I'm going to talk about some of the other stuff, right? The mindset stuff, and especially kind of bouncing back into business and what that all looks like. So stay tuned for that. For those of you who are watching this, by the way, if you're listening to this podcast, I do live recordings now. You can go to the ReDefine community on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the show notes of this episode. Come visit. I record these live. It's raw, and it's not as it's not as put together as the final episode. However, you can get this content sooner, at least maybe a week, sometimes longer, than the release of the actual episode. So again, that's the ReDefine community if you want to watch live recording. Otherwise, right now the cadence is going to be Tuesday and Thursday, because I want to get this material out, and I want to really get into the nitty gritty of talking about marketing, talking about business, because there's a lot to catch up on, right? I've been gone for a while, so there's a lot to catch up on. So the next episode will be released on Thursday. That is Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, we're going to be talking about how I the things I've done to kind of bounce back and get back on track with my content creation, my marketing, my social media, and where business is right now for me personally, and what I'm projecting moving forward, the outcomes that I want to create, the goals that I've set for myself in the next 6 to 12 months. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you, and especially for those of you watching the live. We'll catch you in the next one on Thursday. So until then, be well, be safe. We'll see you in the next episode.